Today, we're going to do something a little different. We are going to build an entire civilization from the ground up. We're talking about ancient China, and we're going to explore how this incredible, enduring society was put together piece by incredible piece. So it all really boils down to this one big question. How do you go from just a small settlement along a river to a massive, world-changing empire? Well, that's the answer we're going to build together in this explainer. You know, every great building needs a solid foundation. And for ancient China, that foundation wasn't just made of stone or wood. It was the land itself. The mountains, the deserts, the rivers. They didn't just draw the borders on a map. They literally shaped the destiny of the entire civilization. Right at the heart of everything was the Yellow River. And this thing, it was a classic double-edged sword. On the one hand, its summer floods would leave behind this amazingly fertile silt, which was perfect for farming. It's what allowed the whole civilization to even exist. But on the other hand, those same floods were wild, unpredictable, and could be unbelievably destructive. It was a constant challenge they had to face. China was basically a natural fortress. Think about it. To the east, you have the massive Pacific Ocean. To the southwest, the Himalayas just soaring into the sky. And up north, the brutal Gobi Desert. These weren't just features on a map, they were giant walls that cut the civilization off from almost everyone else. This isolation let a really unique culture flourish, but it also made trade and contact with the outside world a huge challenge. Okay, so you've got all these people living inside these natural walls. How do you organize them all? How do you build the social structure, the pillars of a society that's going to last for thousands of years? Well, it all starts with a very powerful idea. And that idea was the mandate of heaven. This was the ultimate source of an emperor's power. It wasn't just that he had the biggest army. No, the belief was that the emperor ruled because the heavens themselves had picked him and his family to do the job. This divine seal of approval was the bedrock of Chinese government for centuries upon centuries. This belief led to a really fascinating and honestly pretty predictable pattern, the dynastic cycle. It went something like this. A new, strong family would take over, bring peace, and everyone would agree they had the mandate. But over a few generations, maybe they get a little corrupt, a little lazy, then bam, a flood, a famine, some big disaster happens, and people would see that as a sign that the heavens weren't happy anymore. This basically gave everyone permission to rebel. A new dynasty would take over, and the whole cycle would start all over again. So this is basically the blueprint of that society. At the very, very top, of course, you've got the emperor. Right below him are the government officials who actually run the place. Now here's what's really interesting. Look down near the bottom. You find merchants and traders. Even if they were rich, they were seen as less important than the farmers who actually grew the food. And yeah, this whole structure was overwhelmingly patriarchal, with men pretty much calling all the shots. Now, the glue that held this entire pyramid together was one single powerful concept: filial piety. At its core, it means you have to love, respect, and obey your parents and elders. But this idea scaled way up. The thinking was, if you respect your father, you'll respect the village leader. And if you respect the village leader, you'll respect the emperor. It was the absolute foundation of social order. All right, we've got the physical foundation and the social structure. Now let's talk about the spiritual one. What did people actually believe? How did they make sense of the world, their gods, and that huge mystery of what happens when we die? The spiritual world of ancient China wasn't just one thing. It was this amazing mix of different ideas. You had these big philosophies, like Confucianism, which was all about social order, and Taoism, which was about finding balance with nature. You also had legalism, a much stricter system based on harsh laws. And then, layered over all of that, most people believed in many gods. They were polytheistic, with a main supreme god, Shangtai, kind of overseeing the whole show. In the afterlife? Oh, it was a massive deal. Having a proper burial was absolutely critical. It wasn't just about showing respect. It was to make sure your loved one had a peaceful time in the afterlife and, didn't come back as an angry ghost. This led to this deep-seated tradition of ancestor worship, praying to your relatives for guidance and good luck, a practice you can still see today in traditions like Tomb Sweeping Day. So that begs the question, right? If it's so important to get advice from your ancestors, how did you actually do it? How could you ask them a direct question and be sure you were getting an answer back? Well, the answer is one of the coolest things to come out of the ancient world: oracle bones. Priests would actually carve questions onto animal bones or tortoise shells. Then, they'd heat them up until they cracked. The patterns of the cracks were then interpreted as answers, direct from the spirit world. How amazing is that? So, let's recap. We have a stable foundation, a strong social structure, and a shared spiritual framework. When you put all those pieces together, what do you get? You get a civilization that's ready to build some truly extraordinary things. You get an empire of invention. Let's get things off with something you might be taking for granted right now. Paper. Before this, you had to write on heavy strips of bamboo or super expensive silk. Paper made knowledge lightweight, cheap, and easy to spread. It completely changed everything. Next up, an invention that was a complete accident. Chinese alchemists were trying to create a potion for eternal life. They mixed a few things together, and instead of a life-giving elixir, they got gunpowder, an explosive powder that would, ironically, change warfare and death forever. How about this for genius? They built an early earthquake detector. It was this beautiful bronze jar with dragons all around it. If there was a tremor, even hundreds of miles away, one of the dragons would drop a bronze ball into a frog's mouth below, pointing in the direction of the quake. Just incredible. And the list just goes on and on. They were masters of innovation. They invented the cast iron plow and terrace farming to feed their huge population. They built massive levees to control those wild rivers. They perfected bronze tools. And of course, they developed a unique writing system and figured out the secret of making silk from silkworms, creating one of the most desired luxury goods in history. And then there's the big one, the ultimate construction project, the Great Wall. We're talking over 13,000 miles long. It's not really one wall, but this massive, sprawling system of defenses built to protect their civilization from invaders, like the Mongols. It's just a staggering testament to what they could achieve. So after centuries of being built up behind those natural walls, China finally opened a door to the rest of the world. And that door was the legendary Silk Road. Now, it wasn't just one road, it was a whole network of trade routes. Along these paths, that precious silk flowed out. And for the first time, all of China's incredible inventions began to spread across the globe, changing everything. Which brings us right to our final and maybe most important question. All of these pieces we've talked about, the geography, the politics, the beliefs, the inventions, they were all built in relative isolation. So what happens when a civilization that powerful and that unique finally throws open its doors and connects with everyone else? Well, that's a story that is still being written today.